Hello everyone and welcome to our channel CareersTalk. Friends, this is second part of this series with Apoorva, who recently got 5 offer letters from various MNCs. So I will put the link of part 1 in the description box. You can check that later. Friends, before we start, a small request. If you are new to our channel CareersTalk, do subscribe for real Scrum Master interview sessions and don't forget to hit like. It means a lot for us. So yeah, welcome Apoorva. Thanks for giving
Thank-
your time again.
Sure, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for inviting again.
Thanks, Apoorva. So, if you allow, shall we start with our Q&A session?
Sure.
Okay. So, the very first question for this session, which is the continuation of our previous session. The first question is, which of the Agile Manifesto principles resonate most with you and why? And how have you applied these principles in your work as a Scrum Master?
Okay. Okay, so just to start off with the fundas, the four points of the Agile Manifesto are like the first one is interactions over the processes and tools, and the second one is customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and third one is having a working software over heavy documentation, and the fourth one is embracing change over following a plan. So out of the four, I feel the most important or the one which excites me the most is the fourth one, that is embracing a change over following a plan. I feel one of the very classic examples which we can take here is Nokia company. Initially, they were the market leaders in smartphones, mobiles. Most of the shares, anybody you see, they were holding a Nokia phone. But after some time, they were not receptive enough to change. Once Android came in, they were not ready to change their OS soon. And a lot of other companies like Moto, Samsung, everybody else took over, and Android made it a big boom. And even after that, when they tried to make the change, bring in Windows OS and all, it really did not make that much of an impact because the people were already happy with Android. So when they were trying to retrospect, probably as a team, they would have definitely followed a plan when they were using their old OS and their old methodology. They might have hit the plan timelines on target. But the problem was they failed to see the market trends and what the end customers is requiring, and they failed to change when it really required. So that is one of the major things in today's industry. At least changes so fast that if we are not abreast to it, we will lose out on the race. And also that is one of the many biggest reasons why Agile is also becoming very famous compared to waterfall and the other traditional models. So for me, I feel that is the best part of it. The second part of your question, you were asking how we would be implementing it in our projects. Like most agile projects, we tend to get change requests from the customer side based on their business priorities and any changes. So normally we would not, at least I would not encourage a change in between a sprint because it creates tension. It may not be in line with our sprint goal. There is some kind of instability in that sprint. People are getting stressed out. Something is not matching with the other and all that. But because we have frequent, the sprint size is like only 15 days. I think most of the time they will be able to wait for the next 15 days or lesser than that if we are already in between a sprint. And then we can prioritize in the next sprint itself. They need not wait for months together because a plan is already made and that pipeline to get over and things like that. So change request in terms of CRs, you estimate it and you give a cost estimate also if it comes to that, if it's a really big change, and take it up as per priority.
Great, Purva. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so next question is on agile principles. So can you explain some of the agile principles in your own word, and
Okay.
what do these principles means to you, and if you have seen any benefit in your team's work with respect to these principles?
Right. Okay, so coming to the principle, as we know, there are 12 of them. It's a little difficult to remember them. So what I do is I have logically grouped them together so that you don't miss out on the points often. First, I would like to start with customer is king these days. So you have to prioritize on the customer's needs first. And then you should always have a working software. At any given point of time, you should have a working software. And releasing frequently, that is one of the best parts of being in the agile mode. So as a team, we should be giving releases frequently to the customers. And again, quality of code, just because we're releasing very soon, it doesn't mean we need to skip steps or start agglutinating technical debt. So quality of code is again very important, and constant pace that gives us a stability to the team and the customers. We are able to estimate and predict what we can do in future timeline if we have a constant rate. So these set of points, I put it together normally. Next, the next set of points come towards the team, the way we work together and all. Like we should work with, we should have motivated individuals in our team, so that you like a traditional manager, you don't need to go and keep pushing them or assigning tasks to them like a traditional manager. As per Scrum, they need to be pulling in the items from the backlog and start working on them. So they should be motivated to do that. And self-organizing, again, if there are small impediments which you feel they can solve themselves, for everything they should not come running to you. Self-organized team and self-motivation is important. And other things which come with people relationship is we need to ensure that the business and the technical team are talking to each other every day. We have a daily stand-up where the product owner or the customer side BA is also part of that. So they know what is exactly progressing. It helps us to have a transparent view. And even with the inspection and adaptation, it really helps if they are in sync every day. And even when we hit an impediment, it's not news or it's not a surprise to them, because they are also part of the process just like us. Other than that, it's like you also try to have face-to-face communication if the team is co-located. But in today's scenario, we know like most of us are located across the world. So technology comes to our aid. We can have video calls like the way we are having now. Though you don't get the complete feel of being at one place, at least it gives a better vibe when you're seeing the person to whom you're talking to rather than just hearing to somebody. So that is also one of them. So basically, yeah, these are the Agile Manifesto. One of the tricky ones, which most of us have a little doubt, is about the last one, maximize whatever is not done. So that is the last one I would always keep it to. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Apoorva, for that. So friends, these two things, manifesto and principles, sometimes I have seen that, especially the new Scrum Master, uh, they skip this thing. They thought, okay, why anyone is going to ask these questions, you know? But I think this is the most fundamental questions which you should know by heart, honestly. You know, it's not only just because of interview, but as a Scrum Master as well. So these are very two important things: Agile Manifesto along with Agile principles. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. The third question is, what retrospective techniques do you find most useful in your work as a Scrum Master? And how do you adapt these techniques to fit the specific needs and dynamics of each team you work with? So these are the two different questions. And yeah, Apoorva.
Okay, so one of the most common ones which we use are what went well, what did not go well, and what you can improve. So that is the most easiest, and at least for me, I have seen that is most commonly used across all the Scrum teams. So they just create a Jira board or any kind of digital board, and they start putting their stickers there. Now that because we are all digital, or if the team is co-located, you can even have a physical board for that, and just go with what went well, what did not go well, and what are the improvements. Those improvements you can refine on those later and add it as a CIs or continuous improvement into your backlog at a later point in time. So it at least gives you a view on where you can improve and what are your strongholds where you have to which you have to continue doing. So other than these, we have the mad, glad, and sad techniques, like what is really putting you off, like what made you go mad. So that is something that we as a Scrum Master need to address as soon as possible, because it's actually irritating the members of the team. And what made you sad, that there was nothing much we could do about it, but it actually affected your progress. It's making you sad. And glad is whatever went well, whatever were the strengths. So that is the mad, glad, sad techniques. And then you have the 4L, what I liked, what I learned, what was lacking, the 4L techniques. Predominantly, if you see, most of them come together and give you the same kind of information in a different way. One of the innovative ways which I felt was the Three Little Pigs. So we have this small cartoon where the three little pigs go to the woods, and a fox comes in and tries to eat them up. So each of them goes into three different types of houses. One goes to the straw house, the other one to the wooden house, and the other one for the brick house. So the fox could easily break through the straw house and eat up that particular pig. So which means that is your most vulnerable area, or area which will break you down. So which needs immediate attention. That's what we can take it as. So what were your straw house topics that we can jot down? Then the wooden house is like somehow you sailed through. It wasn't that bad or that good, but you can improve in that area. Maybe these could come up as your CIs or areas of improvement. And your brick house, it is your stronghold. Even in the cartoon, the fox couldn't break the house. So those are your strong areas. So these are the few techniques. And the last one, I think, is the sailboat technique. It's all just to give you imagination and make you feel that the entire retrospective ceremony is kind of fun, rather than something so studious and something that people find it very monotonous to do sprint on sprint. So in the sailboat technique, the boat itself is the sprint, and the islands are your sprint goals, and the anchors are something which is pulling you down. That is what is not going well for you. The winds, it helps you, like what is helping you to move towards your sprint goal. So yeah, these are the couple of techniques which are mostly used, I can say.
Okay, great, Apoorva. And just for our audience, we have covered all these retrospective techniques 1.5 years back. So if you want a live demo, you can always go back and check those retrospective techniques as well. So thanks, Apoorva, for that. Okay, so this one is little tricky. So you have joined as a Scrum Master to your team, Scrum team, and there you feel that they are still more waterfall than Agile. So
Mhm.
what would you do to change the culture of that team?
Okay. So basically, when I enter, I'll have to understand what stage the project is in. Are they really smoking, or are they in the startup stage? Or is it like the main products have already gone and they're just doing the final touches? Is it in which phase exactly it is? Then probably before jumping out and saying that you need to correct this or that, I would rather sit and see at least one sprint, how they go. I'll just be a silent spectator and try to make record whatever they do. And after one sprint, if I feel, as you said, if they're more into waterfall than Agile, more into waterfall in the sense like their releases are going very slow, once in 3 months, 4 months, and they are not at all adaptive to change. They're reluctant to take in any changes that come through. They're very much sticking to the plan, dates, efforts. There's a lot of traditional managerial kind of approach coming in through. Those kind of traits, if you see, then probably I would discuss that with the senior management. And after that sprint, we can probably take a break for a week before starting the next sprint. Because if you go on with the sprints, it's difficult to bring in any kind of change within the sprint itself. So you take a break, then you do maybe on the first day I'll do some team building activities for people to become more at ease. And if they're all a lot of new joinees in the team, maybe you can introduce them and just have a fun kind of day the first day. Then second day, you can ask them what they know about Agile, what they know about Scrum, and you kind of give some intro and yarn about Agile, how Scrum works, what are the events, what exactly you are supposed to do in an an ideal case kind of scenario. Then on the third day, maybe I will give them a small problem which they have to follow the Scrum principles and solve themselves, like on the ground. So that way they'll understand how fast they need to be, how soon the turnaround time for the releases is to be, and things like that. Then after that, one of the most important points is I would go through the backlog, how healthy the backlog is, and how refined it is, and how many stories are ready to be picked up for the developers in the next sprint. So the pipeline is clear. So I would talk with the product owner and try to understand their side of the impediments, if they're not getting prioritization from business side, or they don't have enough functional knowledge in that area to come up with good stories, and what we can do to refine the stories to bring it up to speed in a form that comes to the developer table without much dependency and impediments for them to close it within that sprint. So the next action item for me would be to build a healthy product backlog with right prioritizations. Then along with that, the basic human mindset is, if you go on telling them that this is not right, that is not right, you're not doing anything right, they tend to try to avoid you, or they'll not give you the right status upfront. Nobody likes criticism as such on the face. So what I would do is I would try to tell them that these things what you have done is really good. These are the things what we will continue to do, and these are the artifacts what you are creating is really adding value. This is what we are going to carry forward, and along with that, this is the change I am proposing for you. Because as a Scrum Master, we are always in the facilitator role. You can't say like a traditional manager, stop this, start this. That's not the way it works. So I as a Scrum Master will facilitate and give them some options. See, your releases are not going as fast as required in an agile world. You're not able to take in changes as required. So what are your challenges? What are the various options which you suggest and I suggest as a Scrum Master to overcome these barriers? So at this point, whatever is feasible for all of us, we'll just start with those few things. Then as time goes, as we mature as a team, then we can take more stringent actions and become more and more agile going forward. So probably this is my approach. I need to find a way to let them know that I'm there to help. I'm not there to criticize. I'm not auditing them. So that is the approach I would like to take.
Good, Apoorva. Thanks. Great. Okay, so again, this one is again a situational question. So let's assume there is a new product owner on your team, and this PO is trying to add new stories mid-sprint, and also closely monitoring the progress in daily Scrum calls. So what you would do as a Scrum Master?
Okay. So I would first try to understand the background of this particular product owner. If he's coming from a traditional managerial mindset, or he was a manager before, it's quite expected that he or she would be behaving that way. So, and also you'll try to understand how much is their agile maturity, or how many teams they have worked in agile projects. So that way you try to understand their knowledge from agile perspective and their expertise from managerial perspective. So then if you feel that this is their first agile project or something, maybe they're not doing it deliberately, they're just doing it in a managerial approach, then you can go and talk to them, coach them that this is how the Scrum works. You should allow the developers to discuss in the daily stand-ups, and it is their call to decide how good or how close they are to the sprint, and to discuss their impediments, rather than us running it like a managerial show. I would try to explain that to him or her. And I would also try to understand why they're trying to do that. Maybe in the last 2-3 sprints, if the team has not been able to meet the sprint goal, maybe that is making them a bit jittery. They may be feeling that they need to bring in a little more traction and see what exactly they're doing every day. So if that is the case, then we'll have to go through those retrospective points as to why the team was not able to meet the sprint goal. if we find a reason like they have been trying to push a lot of stories and the team is getting stressed out, you'll have to tell them upfront that this is not the way it's going to work. The developers are going to decide how much they can work on. If we just go on pushing them, the three principles of Agile, the transparency, inspection, and adaptation, will definitely go for a toss. They'll start like velocity, for example, they'll start estimating more because they know you will push more on them. So they'll not give you the right figures. If something is going to take 5 story points upfront, they'll tell you it is 8 story points. So that way, if the trust between the between the team members is lost, if the transparency is lost, then the entire flavor of Agile is breaking down. So that's not what we want. Or they may even start skipping some of the quality steps and start releasing items which may break down in production. That is also not something which the product owner or a scrum master or anybody for that matter would want. So I would try to let them know that what the repercussions may be if we try to push more than what they can do. So I'm quite sure they will appreciate, like they all these are not at all required kind of behavioral patterns. Other than that, maybe if it is just a one-time kind of pass, like scenario where they've just added something to the sprint just now because it was high priority in the business right now, then you can just go with that in that flow for this particular sprint, trying to tell them that it is stressing out the team. Let's not do this often. And if it is possible, and how is the technical feasibility to add these items in between the sprint? Is it not going to affect the sprint goal and things like that? Maybe you can allow them to do that for one sprint. So basically, these kind of approaches would be beneficial in this case.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Sapur, for that. Okay. Next one is, yeah, sometimes nowadays they ask, so what are the some common issues present in Jira?
Okay, common issues. Normally, one is basically the stories, which the team is going to pick up sprint on sprint, which is getting added to from the product backlog to the sprint backlog. Then you have the bugs. Whatever bugs are coming in that sprint, normally we are expected to close those bugs in that sprint itself, unless it's a huge one which needs to be converted to a PR or something like that and taken forward if it requires a lot of action. The other one, as I was just talking about, is the problem record. Normally, problem records and incidents comes through from production. Incidents are managed by the ops team, but if it requires any code change more than 5 PDs of effort, it gets converted into a problem record and gets added to the product backlog. And then you have technical debt. Technical debt gets added either because of a hot fix or there is a continuous rot because the team is not following certain practices which they have to as part of the coding standards. So those kind of technical debts get added. And while planning for the sprint, it is very important that we reserve some capacity of the sprint for these kind of technical debt. Though they are not adding as such value today, if you allow it to grow, it will definitely take you in the reverse direction at some point in time. So basically, these are the types of issues which we can see in Jira.
Great, Apoorva. And again, one more thing for our viewers. We have created one session, I think 2 years back, on specifically on Jira. So I think 25 questions with respect to Jira we have already created. So if you guys have time, just go back and check. Nowadays, they ask 1 or 2 questions from Jira as well. So just, yeah, just you can browse it. You will find it very easily, that particular session. Okay, great, Apoorva. So let's move on. So how do you ensure your team is delivering quality deliverables in every sprint?
Okay. One, again, a very important thing for the Scrum Masters to be sure of. I would definitely go with a very good DOD checklist, definition of done checklist, which again, we have to first come up with it, discussing with the technical team whether these points are enough or are they too much or they too less. Is it doable? Because that has to be followed for every story. And is it really good enough and they feel it is value adding? Because if you introduce a process which they feel is not value adding, for some time they may do because you are forcing them to do, slowly it will die down. So they need to understand that it is adding value to them. So you come up with the DoD checklist. In my project recently, what we had is first, you have a lot of checkpoints only. There's nothing they have to write in huge lines, because that's something, it's time waste for all of us. So the first checkpoint, whether the development for all the scenarios in that particular story is done. Then is the unit testing for it completed. In our particular project, we had automation of the unit testing as well. So how much percentage of the unit testing is automated, and how much was feasible for automation? That percentage you get it from Q test. So they could easily get those numbers. They have to fill those numbers there. Then you have a peer review, which is manual actually. So they manual in the sense they put their code into Bitbucket, a tool for the CI/CD approach, which is integrated with Jenkins. So in Bitbucket, only once a lead or a senior developer approves their code, then only it moves into the Jenkins pipeline for merge later on. So they need to have this peer review, and whatever comments is also given in the code itself. Once it is incorporated and that particular lead developer or senior developer approves it, then it gets into Jenkins for CI/CD. So is the peer review done? That is one checkpoint. Then after that have you merged your code into the main branch so that everybody else gets to know that the story is complete? So that is one checkpoint. Then coming down to SIT testing, the testers have to write the testing scripts for it. And again, how much percentage of it is automated? How much is manual? What is the feasibility of automation? Those kind of figures they'll have to give. Then once it moves into UAT environment, have we done a demo to customers? Anyway, most of it which is going in the next release will be showcased in the sprint review as part of the demo. So we need to ensure that the demo is given and the customers have given a sign off on that. Either normally these days we don't ask them to send out a mail and all separately. In the Jira story itself, they can just say, I'm happy with this particular story or things like that. In any which way, we need to have an evidence that it has been UAT approved by the customer. Then when it goes into the pre-prod environment, it is similar to production environment. It's just a clone of that. In that environment, they would be doing a performance testing, basically a load test. And if it involves any penetration testing or cross-browser testing, those results will be published there. The tick mark is for performing the PT test, as well as the results being in the required range. So only if all these points are done, then we'll say this particular story is complete. So it is really, sometimes it becomes little heavy on the Scrum Master to ensure these are followed for every particular story. But what I feel is, if you empower the team and let them know that this is value adding for them, 1 or 2 sprints you push them hard, and when they're starting to follow this checklist, the number of incidents in production and all are coming down, then they will definitely start appreciating your process. Then they will themselves volunteer to do it. So once you get to know and the team is familiarized with it, without much push from your end, they'll start doing it themselves. That's what I feel.
True. I strongly agree on that part. Okay. Next question is, what are the various reports which, as a Scrum Master, you create or share with your customer or a senior management? Again, this question is asked so many times. So, Apoorva, your thought?
Yeah. So one is the sprint report, which we prepare every 15 days. That is for every sprint. That is normally maintained in Confluence. We send the link to the customer representatives. I'll just let you know what are the things which we added after a minute. The other report which we share is a monthly deck, which is more elaborate from an engagement perspective, not just from the delivery perspective. It is the monthly deck initially will have the RAG status from your schedule, your effort perspective, your cost perspective. Are you okay from the payments and those kind of areas? Your CIs, learning, all those areas, you give the RAG status for all of them. Then the last 2 sprints details in gist you give in 2 slides, like how much you committed for, how much you were able to achieve, what was the average velocity of the team for the last 6 sprints, and the key takeaways from that sprint, what was the main value which was delivered in that particular sprint. And as a contractual obligation, we also had to deliver at least 1 or 2 CIs in every sprint. So we tell them which are the continuous improvements we are working on in this sprint and what is the status of it. So after these two, then you go on to the metric slide. We, at least in our project, we have, it's contractually obliged that you need to have this unit testing coverage, the percentage of test cases which is automated, and your Jira, Sonar Cube, if you have any code smells, and release frequency, how many rollbacks you had, and what was the duration for your release, and these kind of metrics you report there. And the next slide is on the pipeline for the next 3 or 4 sprint. What's your pipeline? What is the value you're trying to deliver? And do you see any impediments or any roadblocks in that pipeline? And after that, because ours was a DevOps team, we have a couple of slides on the operation metrics as well. Your SLA, availability time, things like that, and any PRs or incidents which got created. And you do an RCA on the top 3 causes of the incident. And finally, we'll have an L&D slide, like if anybody completed any certifications or any LinkedIn, Udemy trainings, you just highlight those things as accolades, or anything you have done to improve the quality of your team, some hackathon you have organized or something you have done. That's what the total monthly deck gives you about the entire engagement. Then coming to the sprint report, it is very much closely on the delivery aspects of that particular sprint. Initially, you will be, we maintain the DOR checklist also, apart from the DOD checklist. The DOR checklist will mainly consist of, was the technical design ready, was the walkthrough given, and any wireframes, was it there? Does your story contain the acceptance criteria, and were the test scenarios which can be automated, those test scripts, are they attached to them? A few such checkpoints are there. So that is also a Confluence page. We attach that link to the DOR for that particular sprint. Then we add a table on the issues which are selected for this sprint, which was planned. Then we'll give the velocity, what was planned, what we have been able to achieve, and the trend over the last 3-4 sprints. So just to show how constant we are with our velocity rate. Then what exactly we could deliver, any impediments we faced in this sprint, or something is ongoing and we need senior leadership's help on something, those details we give. And on an end note, you just add the DOD criteria if it has met all the checkpoints. That's our sprint report.
Great, Apoorva. Thank you. Okay, looks like we are done for today. We will have our next session very soon, Apoorva. So thank you again. I really thoroughly enjoy this session. And friends, I hope you guys has also found this session helpful. So don't forget to leave your comments and like this video, show some support. And yes, we will always welcome your feedback. So with this thought, let me close this session and see you in the next session. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Apoorva.
Thank you. Thank you.